Even CDF, if proper audit was done, almost 90% of MPs will be in jail. Tell me which one has been rejected on the basis of either what you did in the past or you have no capacity to articulate the issues as they are, and we suspect you are not capable of running that particular office. You know, part of the campaign of Kenya Kwanza was do the unconventional, fight the dynasties, dynasty, until some of us who have been in politics for some time, we almost refer to as dynasty.
And you're just in time for Business Glide, your only point of call on matters public policy analysis, business and economics at large. I'm yours truly, resident economist here, Richard Mwenjo. It is always a pleasure and distinct honor to have you on board. And today we're discussing matters to do with corruption. This is after the EACC has actually brought forth its corruption report of 2023, in which it highlights that the cost of corruption and bribery has actually gone up and almost doubled in just under the last 2 years. So what does this mean for Kenya's economy and for Kenya at large? That should be our conversation today, and to help me dissect into that particular subject is none other than the firebrand and think tank that is the former minister, Ruto Arap Kirwa. Great to see you, sir.
Thank you.
How was your Easter though?
It was good, but why do you call me a firebrand? I used to be.
You still are? Perhaps why our masses love you on the channel.
Well, I thank God for it, because as I've always maintained, nation building takes each and every person. And it's my duty, my obligation, and my right to occupy that space, because that's the only way I can lend some knowledge to Kenyans and other individuals all over the world. It is a privilege, because as Mwalimu Nyerere said in one of the statements he made, is that when you are allowed to go to school and having sufficiently gone to school, you don't go back to give back to society. It's like somebody who is given food at the expense of the whole village staffing, and instead of being grateful, he runs away. He says such an individual is a traitor. So anybody who has gone to school, anybody who has gotten something to share with society, it is a height of hypocrisy, and you are a traitor to the nation of Kenya.
Very well. And straight to the day's conversation, we have received actually some news that are not really good to the hearts of Kenyans and patriots at large, that of the cost of bribery and corruption going up, according to the EACC survey of 2023. But let's begin here, because you've been a state officer before and hold of a critical docket. When a sitting state officer comes forth before the media and makes the threats and announcement that is going to crack down on cartels or those people involved in corruption, from your end, do you consider that to be the first admission of failure?
Well, partly so, because if you occupy an office and you know you have the muscle, at times they say actions speak louder than words. You would have expected that certain decisions will be taken so that we see heads rolling for purposes of ensuring that we minimize corruption. The other challenge that I see with the current regime is to talk casually about corruption as if it's not a vice. And of course, at times, a display of lagis by individuals who have just occupied office for the last 3 months, 1.5 years, is a sign that there is something is not right. Because the CS earns about 1 million shillings. Governor earns almost the same or thereabout. And then you see somebody buying property worth almost 1 billion. What are you telling us? What is so innovative about what you are doing that you all of a sudden you have 900 million, 800 million? So that kind of thing is something that we should be cautious. And I would wish and advise the president that apart from taking action through the state instruments that he has, it is also good for them to have a national discourse on the issue of corruption, issue of human resource audit in all ministries and departments of government, human resource audit in the sense that you'll find some of the officers, even in my former Ministry of Agriculture, since I left, some of them have never gotten promotion.
To this date?
To this date. They have just been remaining in the same job group. So these are some of the issues that if you keep somebody in the same job group and therefore his salary is not being adjusted and he does not get motivated, you are actually inviting that person to use alternative means and therefore not serving the nation that it ought to be. Alternative means includes even issues of corruption. I remember with the former governor of Kisii, who was my peers, we did human resource audit and appraisal. We shared with DPM, that is Directorate of Personnel Management, and some officers were promoted and some had been in the same job group for 13 years. They literally cried. They had not expected such a move to be done. When we did it, even in terms of performance, our ministry was number one in the first performance contracting. So these are some of the telltale signs that we need to address. Finally, as I've said, we need to ask ourselves, where are we taking this country? We need to have that national discourse that we talk about corruption, what it means, and we also stop showing signs of corruption.
Sure.
When you hear somebody has grabbed 1,000 acres, 2,000 acres, really, what are you telling the rest of us? Is that you really don't have to work for what you have. And it seems you find a young man has just gotten to parliament. You are told he owns a house worth about 500 million. Really, where is this money from? It must be from corruption. And you see, once you start the chain of corruption, it is endless.
Very well.
You cannot stop.
Now that you've brought forth the conversation about the correlation between minimum wages and the role it plays in either taming or actually advancing corruption, do you think we can tap into the potential of trade movement to address the same?
Yeah, it is useful. You know why I'm calling it national conversation is for all individuals. Even those of us who are seen almost not to be active in politics, we discuss this issue. We ask ourselves, why is it that somebody will say, we will push this, possibly your title or whatever, but sunajua mambo ya Kenya. So that statement hits me so hard, because that we have admitted nothing can be done without exchanging. It's not even just a token of appreciation. It is like money, it will be fast-tracked. No money, your file will remain in the same place for as many days as possible. So what we need is national conversation. The trade movement can get involved, members of parliament, county assembly, and even the population at large. Today, I'm not a sitting MP, but if I went to my village, Kablamai, people will expect, they will exchange niceties. Oh, then they say, Mheshimiwa, usituache bure. So really, see, that's a form of corruption.
It is.
An MP today, for somebody to be an MP in an average constituency, you need close to 30 million. During our time, it could be possibly 500,000 or so, which was also a lot of money. But now, for MP, 30 million. For governor, 500 million.
Very well.
Where will that money, where does he get the money? And how is he going to recoup what he has used, when we know salary of a governor is 1 million? And because you are there for, let's say, for 5 years, that's about 60 months. That's 60 million at most. So where do you get all this? And that's why, and you see, when you factor in corruption in a project, the cost of that project goes up by almost 50%. So effectively, we are stealing from the public and we are polluting the same public. We are corrupting their minds. Rightly
put. You served as the agriculture minister in Kibaki 1. And let me ask you, do you think giving state officers a free hand to apply themselves will somewhat help in taming the vice that is corruption?
You see, what Kibaki did, there were two things. He never organized a vendetta against an individual. He gave you a free hand. But should you get into trouble, you look the other way. The scales of justice shall follow you.
No calls from above to grant you immunity?
No. Some ministers were sacked. Some were taken to court. Some came back possibly after a short period. But some of them did not come back up to now. They did not even get back to politics because of issues of corruption. So it was that Kibaki will not fight you, but he will also not fight for you should you find yourself on the wrong side of the law. And therefore everybody was cautious and was careful. And even, yes, people talk about President Moi that there was corruption during his tenure. But we as members of parliament, because I was in Kano for 15 years as an MP, we were careful. We never asked questions to seek cash because we knew the system will catch up with you. So if you asked any genuine question, you don't exchange it for cash. But nowadays, whatever discussion that goes on in parliament, including vetting, you are told you need so much. The committee is possibly about 10 people or 13, and you need to see them. Perhaps you may use about 5 million just to go through vetting process. So it is something that we must invite ourselves, that where are we taking this country? Where are we taking this country? Why are we so militant against each other? Why are we encouraging corruption? Why are we encouraging tribalism? Why are we encouraging disunity? These are fundamental questions that we must ask ourselves. Our sisters, our neighbors, because they are more homogeneous in terms of their focus, the economy may start overtaking ours. We've been enjoying the fact that we are slightly ahead of the rest of East Africa, and we are also among the top in terms of certain aspects of technology and also certain level of education, because the human resource in Kenya is a very strong and vibrant human resource. My worry is that now we seem to be losing to other countries. It is getting again popular to be out of Kenya. And yet, at a certain period, Kibaki 1 and 2, it was more attractive to come back to Kenya.
There was less capital flight and also
less capital flight. Even some companies are closing here to go elsewhere because of the same vice of corruption. I'm told in Rwanda, it takes almost 10% of the time that we take in Kenya. You want to open a company?
The ease of doing business.
The ease of doing business, the ease of getting licenses and other requirements for you to set up a company in Rwanda, I'm told it takes the shortest time possible. Here in Kenya, you have a problem. Even registering, even what we call a patent. If you want to register your patent, it is easier to register internationally than to register in Kenya.
Intellectual property.
Yeah, intellectual property or patenting of anything that you have. So these are small things when you talk about it, but they are very fundamental.
Very well.
Yeah.
Rightly put. And looking at the ESC corruption report of 2023, the Ministry of Interior has been ranked as #1 when it comes to the corruption index. And this is a ministry that oftentimes renders so much of citizen services. But when a ministry comes forth and puts forth excuses such as we have issues with broken down printers, we do not have enough resources, printing resources for the passports and so on and so forth, do you think it should be the business of taxpayers to know such?
Yeah, it is. It is a very critical issue. I know the minister is trying his best, but the minister alone cannot resolve all the issues. That place, especially where passports and other documents of citizenship are supposed to be processed, at times it is easier for a foreigner to get an illegal passport in Kenya than for a Kenyan to get it. It worries me because at times you go to Somalia. I worked in Somalia for 4 years. You find them, they have IDs of Kenya, and when you look at them, they cannot even pronounce a single word in Kiswahili, which means these are people who are not the Somali community in Kenya. We don't mind people being part of our country, but we must use legal process.
Do you think it's a problem that has been artificially brought forth, that of delayed backlogs in disbursement of passports, in getting other citizen services, or we have the capacity as a country to slay such giants?
Well, it could be yes and no. Yes, in the sense that corruption resides in that ministry. And therefore, if you do not give money, you will not get the service you require. No, because partly the number of people asking for passports has gone up. Because I think there is a mass exodus of individuals from Kenya to other countries, either as students or some of them seeking some job opportunities. Well, but it should be the work of the government to fast track and even make a passport, not such a serious document. Let the passport be like your ID, so that you have a choice to use it or not to use it. But they are making it look like it is such a sacred document that to have a passport is like you acquire another status.
Very well.
Yep.
And do you think spot checks from the authorities in charge should be something should be doing more often, or that also could be part of knee-jerk reactions that are not sustainable?
Knee-jerk reaction, because this is something that we need to do, what we call social re-engineering, for people to realize that to serve a fellow citizen is a privilege. There are many people who would want to do the same thing you are doing, but and if you don't change that person at that level, and you make corruption attractive in the sense that somebody like Richard goes to migration, within no time he's asking me for a plot in Karen, which is about 70 million, then you get worried. It is worrying because we've been around, and even to get $1 million at times is impossible. But you see somebody, you'll realize has 10 million in the account, you ask yourself, well, how? Why is it that I've done farming for more than 40 years, and at times even to have $1 million in my account is a struggle. Possibly you may have it for a month or two, but then you take it back to the farm. So it is something that worries me. And you know, I would also recommend that we do it at the school level, so that as a child gets to school, you are taken through a curriculum where corruption is something anathema. But if you encourage, and even when leaders talk that I bought apartment for my daughter in London, I bought her a car,
it raises more questions.
It raises a lot of questions. And even I don't know whether we've said before, even CDF, if proper audit was done, almost 90% of MPs will be in jail.
From CDF alone?
CDF alone, because you see, every constituency gets an average of 160. We used to do a rambe during our time, and perhaps we used to collect maximum throughout the constituency like Cherangani. Possibly you collect 5 million in the whole year, and you could see evidence of work. Now today, 160 million, and you don't see evidence of work. We used to do a rambe almost every week for students going to secondary school or even to university. Today, there is bursary, but you don't see the beneficiaries clearly. In fact, my recommendation would be the beneficiaries should be displayed in every secondary school. They say these are the beneficiaries from CDF, the bursary, this is from the county bursary, so that anybody can check. And nowadays there is Mtandao.
Sure. Why
don't you make it easy that when I click, let's say, Cherangani constituency, I can see the beneficiaries from bursary, the projects that are benefited from the CDF, the roads that have been done, at the click of a button. Why aren't we transparent?
Addressing information asymmetries.
Yes.
Very well then. And what do you make of the recent situation we are seeing in this country, that of we are experiencing less of high-profile graft prosecutions, but more of acquittals? Do you credit this to probably some quarters enjoying immunity from powers that be, or we should actually take concern with the administrative justice?
Yeah, it worries me because either the cases were initially politically motivated, or those who took over had some benefit from that corruption, in the sense that it cannot be said about, I think, 17 cases have gotten acquittals in the last 1.5 years, and these are high-profile cases. What are you telling the young man and the young woman on the ground? What are you telling him or her? That yes, If you rise to a certain level, you are acquitted of all the crimes.
The cost of being poor in Kenya.
Yeah, well, that's the point. Number two, look at some of the parastatals. You find somebody who has a case with a certain parastatal arising out of a challenge in terms of taxes to the tune of about 17 billion. You realize the person is made the chairman of the institution which has a case with him or her. These are some things that, yes, we are not saying they are corrupt, but we are saying let acquittal be done openly. Let somebody who occupies a certain position not have anything to do with that institution in terms of impropriety. Otherwise, we would be saying, yes, to be appointed, you must be corrupt. And if you are not corrupt, then you cannot be appointed.
Very well.
And perhaps it explains why some positions, even during vetting, somebody had to part with money, either 5 million, 10 million, and some people lost money, but they never got the position.
So some of this vetting is ceremonial at times.
It's ceremonial. Tell me which one has been rejected on the basis of either what you did in the past, or you have no capacity to articulate the issues as they are, and we suspect you are not capable of running that particular office. Yes, interviews can put some people into a panicky mode, but you need to assess, because it's not one person interviewing you. There are many people interviewing, and somebody, if you lose composure just because there is a panel in front of you, then you will not run the office, because you'll be dealing with challenges, some cracking your mind, and some people in the offices may be more knowledgeable about that particular office than you, the boss, knows.
One front that has brought forth the ugly side of corruption in Kenya has to do with the sector that is in charge with quality assurance and standardization. This far we've heard of sugar that is not fit for human consumption making way to the Kenyan market, rice, maize flour, and even edible oil. But oftentimes we see those in charge with such graft, walk scot-free. Does it sort of point to the direction of a country that is blind to the sanctity of human life? We actually putting the Kenyans' life at risk.
Yeah, it worries me, because even the high incidence of cancer nowadays could be coming from this food that is laced with some poisonous substances. As you've said, edible oil disappeared. We don't know where it went. Some people are saying it might have ended up in some of the institutions of government. The sugar in Thika, they saw it in the store. You don't see it again. The sugar that was said was laced also with poison. There is the fake fertilizer that is still pervading now parts of the North Rift. And at times, before you buy from a shop, you buy one and you open at random, so that you don't take soil for fertilizer. There is also the issue of fake seeds, that somebody gets maize from the store, colors either brown or red or blue, fake degrees, that we know some people in this town say they have certain qualification and they are fake, to the extent that now they have gone through the law, through a court of law, that perhaps in future you don't need to have a degree to run for position of governor. They have, if I'm not wrong, just a check. I think there is a ruling in court that has not been challenged, that you don't have to have university degree for you to be a governor. Well, it is not a must that you must be the most intelligent person in the village to be a governor. But if there is that law, why do you go against it? Why don't you remove the law? Some countries, those requirements are not there. But you cannot be setting the laws, then you go against them. That is part of the impunity that we are talking about. There is also the issue, there was something else that was, even normal products that you see in the market. It used to be that anything that has gone through Kenya Bureau of Standards meets the requirements. I'm told even some alcohols, they get the stamp of Kenya Bureau of Standards, and yet they are fake. I'm told some alcohols are made here. Yeah, they call it whiskey, but it's not pure whiskey. So for those of you who drink whiskey, be careful. You may be drinking some poisonous substance that may destroy your stomach and your intestines.
So what does that make of agencies that are mandated to look into such like KEBS? Do you think they are worthy the praise on their mandate?
You know, it is systemic. The corruption is systemic. I would not want to blame Kenya Bureau of Standards alone. Possibly even some of the labels, possibly they are getting manufactured on parallel, because I suspect not all of them come from Kenya Bureau of Standards, but they should also be doing cross spot check, and when they find somebody with that, they give them a serious punishment. But as I said, we need to change our mindset, because I'm telling you, Richard, Kenyans love corruption. And it is only that when they don't benefit that they fight corruption. You will find somebody who has been talking anti-something, all of a sudden is doing the opposite of what he used to talk about. So it worries me, because what is it that changes when I move from this side of the desk to the other side?
Makes sense.
I should be able to have the same commitment when I'm in power and when I'm out of power.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Moving on swiftly, and from the report we've seen that when one wants to attain some sort of job with a public service, then it has attracted the highest amount of bribe and corruption. You are a minister, and during your tenure, did you have such cases whereby merit takes a back row seat and money takes the front row seat when it comes to employment in the public service?
Well, I think it was, you know, NAC came to power, and one of the issues that the public bought from us was zero tolerance to corruption. Yes, corruption took place during our tenure, but it was not to the scale that it is today, because we seem to want to break systems. You know, part of the campaign of Kenya Kwanza was do the unconventional. Fight the dynasties, call anything that they have that it is ill-acquired. And that became like destroy the system. Now, when they got into the system themselves, it's like now they are finding it impossible now to tell people, can you behave? Now, because we are now in power, behave. So it's a challenge to the president, because, you know, that was their rallying call, dynasty, until some of us who have been in politics for some time, we almost refer to as dynasties. It was like dynasty is experience, and inexperience is hustler. So that comparison destroyed our social fabric, and we need to amend. We need to repair the damage that was done. And there's no better person than the president himself to accept national discourse that come to Zemezane. That's the only way we can fight it. Otherwise, young people, they believe. In fact, if you interview at random, they believe in corruption.
They believe in corruption.
They believe in corruption. They think corruption is a way of getting rich.
And now, for a country that is committed to be the Singapore of Africa, yet we're experiencing such alarming corruption index in this country, how far do you think we are from being that Singapore of Africa?
Well, we are in Kenya. Singapore is in the Far East. You know, the mindset, unless the mindset is changed, the mindset is the engine of growth of any nation. At times, even when you are poor and you believe in yourself, you will grow faster than somebody who has resources but does not utilize resources well.
Are you worried that maybe many deserving Kenyan children will be denied their future and rise into their full potential just because corruption will come in the way of them attaining some opportunities?
Society will be destroyed. Millions of Kenyans will suffer. And it worries me every day. What country am I leaving to my children and my grandchildren if I do not mend it now, and if I'm not part of the discussion that yes, we have corruption, but yes, we can do something against the corruption. And the best way is demonstrating from the top leadership to any leadership position on the ground. It worries me because people, there is the word called mentorship. You mentor people not by telling them what to do, but the way you behave they will copy from you. So leadership at every level, whether a member of parliament, whether a minister, governor, any other level, if you encourage certain style of leadership, you will find people doing the same. During the tenure of President Moi, perhaps you may not have seen, you could not go to a government office without having a tie. And it was not, nobody stood and made the rule, but it had become more of a practice. Today you go to government offices, you find somebody in a t-shirt and he's serving the public. It worries me. Yeah, I don't go to many of them, but when I do a random check,
zero sense of decorum.
Yes, completely. You don't know exactly what has happened. Yeah, I just beg the president. I beg the president to spend more time thinking for this nation and talk less to us about how you want to fight corruption. Let us agree we want to stop corruption and do it by leadership, by example.
And very lastly, did you laud the efforts of EACC to bring forth such crucial information of sectors that are riddled with deep corruption?
It is useful, but you see, what is the game plan? What is the end product? Yes, telling us there is corruption, you are making us look bad, but what is the end? What is the end? Do we improve the office of the Controller and Auditor General to be able to do an audit right from the sub-location to the national? You know, that office is overstretched. I don't think they have enough officers to deal with all issues of audit from Kablamai Primary School to Kenyatta University.
Yet you have many unemployed auditors out here, potential ones.
There are many, but they need to be employed. And that's why I say we need to do human resource audit to ask ourselves how many auditors do we need for this country to rein in corruption. Then we employ them.
Before we export them for some little diaspora remittances?
Useless. You know, I was out of Kenya for 4 years. I was earning equivalent of 1 million shillings. But those 4 years, I almost lost most of my properties in terms of neglect. And if you gave me a job, even earning 5 million out of Kenya, I will not go. Give me a job of even 300,000 in Kenya, I'll be happy.
You'll be happy.
I'll be happy.
Well, that point by Kipruto Arap Kiro takes us to the wrap of this conversation today, talking matters to do with the corruption report that has been brought forth by EACC, that of 2023. And indeed, Kipruto Arap Kiro says there is more that we need to do as a country when it comes to slaying the menace that is corruption. It has to go beyond talking. We literally have to walk our talk. Time now for our founder of the week. It is none other than our very own videographer, Maureen Ngare, who has always served us graciously on the channel, but today marks his last day, her last day with us on this particular production. So Maureen Ngare, it's always a pleasure to have your efforts on board, and you don't take them for granted. Kipruto Arap Kiro, always a pleasure to have you on board.
Yes, thank you, and congratulations to Maureen.
Maureen Ngare,
yes.
One of your favorite videographers here.
Yeah.
Until next time, enjoy the rest of your day.